You're watching the Stories That Scare channel. There is no turning back now.
Johnny the Whacker, Johnny the Whacker, Johnny the Whacker, Johnny the Whacker.
Free true Johnny the Whacker horror stories. Hey everybody, I'm glad y'all stopped by. Every country has its legends. Some places warn you about ghostly hitchhikers. Others tell stories of shadow people, or strange figures that only appear after dark. But over the last century, reports have surfaced from every corner of the world, all describing the same man, Johnny the Whacker. Nobody knows where he came from. Nobody knows if he was ever human. No one knows his real name, or why he carries an axe. What people do agree on is that if you ever see him, you should never let him get close enough to swing. Witnesses describe him as standing nearly 7 feet tall, built like a professional wrestler. Broad shoulders, long arms, always wearing the same dark weathered clothes. His face, strangely difficult to remember. Ask 10 survivors to describe it, and you'll get 10 different answers. The only detail everyone remembers is the axe. Old, heavy, rust-covered, the blade, completely dull. People often ask, why doesn't he sharpen it? According to the handful of people who've survived an encounter, Johnny answered that question himself. Because cutting ends it too quickly. The fun is in the whacking. No one knows how he travels. He has been reported in forests, cities, deserts, apartment buildings, hotels, even aboard cruise ships. Thousands of miles from land. The strangest part, almost every survivor tells the same story. Before they ever saw Johnny, they heard it, just once, somewhere in the distance. Whack. A slow, heavy, dull strike. By the time you hear the second one, he's already much closer. Whether these stories are true, I'll let y'all decide. Story 1. The night delivery. During college, I delivered food to make extra money. Most nights were easy. Pick up the order, drop it off, drive to the next restaurant. Around 1:30 in the morning, I accepted an order that paid unusually well. The address led to a large house, at the end of a dead-end road. No streetlights, no neighboring homes, just one porch light glowing in the darkness. I grabbed the food, walked to the front door, knocked, nothing. I checked the app. It still said, hand it to customer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard it, whack. Not loud, just one heavy strike, like someone hitting a tree with the back of an axe. I turned around. The road behind me was empty. No cars, no people, no movement. Probably just a branch falling. I told myself. I faced the front door again. My phone buzzed. Customer, don't turn around again. I stared at the message. Before I could reply, another notification appeared. Customer, he's closer now. The message sat on my screen. Customer, he's closer now. I looked back at the house. Every light inside was off. I typed, who's closer? The 3 little dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Another message arrived. Customer, leave the food. Get in your car. I didn't argue. I placed the bag on the welcome mat, turned around, and walked as calmly as I could toward my car. Halfway there, whack. Closer. This time, I knew exactly where it came from. Somewhere behind the house. I climbed into my driver's seat, locked the doors, started the engine. Before pulling away, curiosity got the better of me. I looked toward the backyard. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, a man stepped out from behind the corner of the house. He was enormous, nearly 7 feet tall, broad shoulders, long arms hanging motionless at his sides. In one hand, he carried an old axe. The blade looked dull enough to split wood, but not much else. He wasn't looking at the house. He wasn't looking at the food. He was looking directly at me. Then, he smiled, not a grin, not an angry expression, just the faintest smile, as though he'd been expecting me. I slammed the truck into reverse, backed into the road, shifted into drive, and floored it. I didn't stop until I reached the nearest gas station, hands shaking. I opened the delivery app. The order was gone. No address, no customer, no payment, no record. that I'd ever accepted it. The next morning, I drove back. I had convinced myself I'd somehow gone to the wrong place. There was no dead-end road, no house, no mailbox, just an open field. I checked my GPS history. It showed I'd driven straight through that field, stopped for 6 minutes, then left, as if the house had never existed. About a week later, I received another delivery request. No restaurant, no customer name, just one message. Round 2? I declined it. The request disappeared. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. It contained only 2 words. Too bad. Then, somewhere outside my apartment, I heard it. Whack. Maybe that's what makes Johnny the Whacker different. He doesn't seem interested in chasing people. He doesn't need to. Once he knows where to find you, he always seems to know how to come back. Let's move on to story number 2. This next encounter didn't happen on an empty road. It happened 37 floors above the city. The delivery app wasn't the first place people claimed to see Johnny the Whacker, and it certainly wasn't the last. Some people encounter him in the middle of nowhere. Others, in places filled with hundreds of people, which somehow makes it even more terrifying. Let's move on to story number 2. Story 2. Room 2718. I travel for work. At least 3 weeks out of every month, hotels have become a second home. So when I checked into a business hotel in Singapore, it felt like every other trip. 27 floors, modern lobby, friendly staff, nothing unusual. After dinner, I rode the elevator up to room 2718. I showered, watched television for an hour, then climbed into bed. Around 2:43 a.m., I woke to a strange sound. Whack! It echoed faintly through the hallway. I assumed someone had slammed a housekeeping card into the wall. I rolled over, closed my eyes. 30 seconds later, whack, closer. This time, it sounded like it came from just outside my room. I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty. Not a single person, no housekeeping cards, no guests, nothing. I shrugged, locked the deadbolt again, and climbed back into bed. A few minutes later, my phone vibrated. It wasn't a call or a text. It was an emergency notification from the hotel app. Do not open your door. I frowned. Before I could read anything else, the notification disappeared, almost as if it had never been sent. Then 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. Housekeeping. The voice was deep, calm, almost cheerful. We've come to sharpen something. I felt my stomach drop. Housekeeping. At nearly 3 in the morning, I looked through the peephole again. Nothing, just an empty hallway. Then, very slowly, a hand wrapped around the edge of my door, from the outside, not reaching toward the handle, just resting there, as though whoever stood outside already knew. I was watching. The hand disappeared. Then, whack! The sound came from the other side of the door, not a strike, more like the back of an axe, being tapped gently against the wood. Once, silence. Twice, silence. A third time, then a quiet voice, almost a whisper. I know you're in there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Eventually, the hallway fell silent. I waited until sunrise before opening the door. There wasn't a single mark on it, but lying neatly in front of room 2718 was a hotel keycard. It wasn't mine. Written across it in black marker were 4 words. Don't miss round 2. Hotels are strange places. Thousands of people, sleeping only a few feet apart. Most of them never knowing who stayed in their room before them, or who might still be walking the halls long after everyone else has gone to sleep. Our final story begins in one of the busiest places on Earth, an international airport, where hundreds of security cameras captured something no one could explain. The hotel keycard stayed in my wallet for months. I never showed it to anyone, mostly because I knew exactly what they'd say. You imagined it. It was a prank. You were overtired. Maybe they were right. Until an airport security officer reached out to me. He said he'd had an encounter of his own, and unlike mine, it had all been recorded. Story 3, Terminal B. I worked the overnight shift as airport security. Between midnight and 5 in the morning, the terminal became eerily quiet. Cleaning crews polished the floors. A few delayed passengers slept across rows of chairs. The loudest sounds were usually rolling suitcases or the occasional boarding announcement. Around 3:15 a.m., I was watching the security cameras when one monitor caught my attention. A man was standing perfectly still in the middle of Terminal B, nearly 7 feet tall, broad shoulders, dark clothes, head lowered. No luggage, no backpack, just an old axe hanging at his side. I zoomed in. The blade looked dull, almost rounded over. I radioed another officer. "Can you check Terminal B? I've got someone acting strange." "On my way." I kept watching. The man never moved. Passengers walked past him without looking. A janitor pushed a mop bucket within a few feet of him. Without reacting, it was as if no one else could see him. Then the radio crackled. "I'm here. I don't see anybody." I looked back at the monitor. The man was gone. I rewound the footage. He had simply vanished. No walking away, no blind spots, one frame. He was there. The next, he wasn't. Then, whack. The sound echoed through my earpiece. Not over the radio, somehow, inside it. Every camera in Terminal B flickered. When the picture returned, Johnny the Whacker was standing in a different location. Closer, not to a passenger, to camera 18. He was staring directly into the lens, head tilted slightly, smiling, the monitor filled with static. One by one, every camera feed across the terminal did the same thing. Static, then Johnny. Static, then Johnny again, always closer to the camera, as if he were walking through the surveillance system itself. The final monitor came online. Camera 27. The security office hallway, outside. My door, the hallway was empty. Then, whack! From the other side of the wall, not loud, just one slow, heavy strike. I looked at the monitor again. Johnny was standing outside the security office, holding the axe, looking directly at the camera. Then, very slowly, he raised one finger and pointed. At the office door a second later, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't answer. I sat perfectly still. The knocking never came again. When the day shift arrived, they reviewed every recording. According to the footage, no one had ever stood in Terminal B. No cameras had malfunctioned. No one had approached the security office. Everything looked completely normal. Except for one thing. On my desk, lying beside my coffee cup, was an airport visitor badge. Printed across the front, where the visitor's name should have been, were 2 simple words. Good game. No one knows who Johnny the Whacker really is. Some believe he's an urban legend. Others think he's something much older. But every encounter seems to begin the same way. A single sound, echoing somewhere in the distance. Whack! If you enjoyed these stories, let me know which encounter disturbed you the most. Was it the night delivery? Room 2718? Or Terminal B? And tell me, if you heard a single whack outside your home tonight, would you look out the window, or would you pretend you never heard it? I'd love to read your answers in the comments. Who knows? Your story might inspire a future episode of Stories That Scare. Keep the fires burning. And as always, I'll tell the stories, if you'll stay scared. Writing.
Johnny the Whacker, 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 Johnny the